Families of missing loved ones and protesters killed by police in Nepal are demanding justice and answers. Thousands of young people are still being treated for gunshot wounds and other injuries after security forces opened fire on crowds in the capital city, Kathmandu. Now, with the appointment of interim Prime Minister Susheela Karki, calls for accountability are growing louder. DW's Adil Bath met some grieving families and the injured.
Mosam and his sister Bauna are grieving the loss of their brother Praveen. The 21-year-old student was killed last Monday on the first day of protests. Mosam, who was also seen on the streets, can hardly grasp his death.
I felt helpless when my brother was shot. I froze when the police fired directly at him. I went mad when I saw it happen right in front of my eyes.
Praveen had left his village for Kathmandu to study Korean. Like thousands of young Nepalese struggling with mass unemployment, he dreamed of working in South Korea to support his family. Mosam says his brother joined the protest to stand against a system that stole the future of many like Praveen.
When I gave my father the news of his death, he cried. I told him, "Don't think my brother is dead. Remember he sacrificed his life for the nation and for its transformation."
The siblings take a moment to remember their late brother. The protest began after the government banned much social media. But they soon grew into a movement against corruption, nepotism and inequality. The state's response was swift and brutal. First tear gas, then water cannon and finally live bullets. More than 50 people were killed, thousands wounded. Sanjay was one of the injured. Rubber bullets hit him and broke both his legs. He says anger at the government drove him out on the streets.
There is growing poverty. The corruption and unemployment is extreme. Even my two brothers are abroad. So to end that chaos, I joined the protest. To end the corruption, to abolish that corruption.
Sanjay says the uprising was necessary in a country so rife with graft. He is willing to live with the consequences. On the streets of Kathmandu, anger over the killings of civilians is still palpable.
This is horrible. I feel really sad and very upset that the state used bullets against their own citizens, like against the young people. And the protest started peacefully, but later it got violent.
If the young people had not lost their lives on the first day, this situation would not have happened. It would have been good. There would not have been so many injuries.
Outside the hospital, Mosam and Bauna join other grieving families. They want accountability and return of their loved ones' bodies. With an interim Prime Minister now in place and the promise of fresh elections within 6 months, young Nepalese hope their voices will finally be heard.
DW correspondent Adil Bath is in Kathmandu. He told us how the people of Nepal are reacting to the news of their interim Prime Minister.
Normalcy is slowly returning in the capital city of Kathmandu after days of deadly anti-corruption protests. The lifting of this curfew and the swearing in of an interim Prime Minister, daily life here is beginning to resume. Shops reopening, traffic back on the streets and markets once again bustling. So this development follows the appointment of former Chief Justice Susheela Karki, who just made history as Nepal's first woman Prime Minister. For many, especially Gen Z, her appointment carries symbolic weight and hope for change, tackling corruption and steering Nepal towards better governance. Some Gen Z protesters are already celebrating on the streets here. But it's not without controversy. Political parties and Nepal's lawyer body are strongly criticizing the president's move to dissolve parliament, calling it unconstitutional. At the heart of this unrest are young Nepalis. Their demands are sweeping, from a crackdown on decades of political corruption reform of education, health and justice systems, to more local jobs so fewer people are forced to leave the country. They also want those killed during protests to recognize their families for compensation and accountability for the violence. So while Kathmandu appears to be calmer tonight, the calls from its young generation for justice, jobs and clean governance remain urgent. And that could define Nepal's politics in the days ahead.